A one-on-one interview with award-winning actor Michael Chiklis, some new Spider-Man news, reviewing a nominated movie filmed and based in Gloucester, and ending with what we're watching. For the Hub on Hollywood, I'm James.
I'm Jamie. This is going to be a great one.
All right, Jamie, it's great to see you. It's good to be back.
See you. Yes. Right, we took a week-long break. I know everybody missed us, but you were off having a heck of a time, weren't you? You were just
Yeah, so I, as you may know, I am engaged, and so my fiance and I, we spent our beautiful bachelor and bachelorette parties in Vegas, where it wasn't that much warmer than it is in Boston right now, but, you know, just enough to walk around in shorts at least, and have a good time and forget about all the snowy conditions that we are, been thrust right back into.
Okay,
but it's good to be back.
Quick question for you.
Yes.
No tigers, no getting arrested, no kidnappings,
no getting locked out on a casino roof. No, none of that. So everybody left in one piece, which is great.
Okay.
And so we are good and happy to be back. And thank you for coming back to another episode of The Hub on Hollywood. If you are watching us, thank you so much. Be sure to give us a like, share, subscribe, all those fun, cool things to do. If you are listening to us, thank you very much. You can listen to us on any of the major podcasting streaming services, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, we are there. But let's talk about talking about this new Spider-Man news, because while I was gone, this dropped, and we have to talk about it because now that the Blu-ray is dropping soon for Spider-Man No Way Home, we're getting these clips and these little teases of interviews from behind the scenes from Tom Holland. And again, these are the spoilers now because Spider-Man's been out for a while. But also from Tobey Maguire. Yeah, you should have seen it by now. But Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, we were seeing these clips online of them being interviewed and, having a lot of fun together behind the scenes on the set of No Way Home. And then we got this iconic picture of the three, and the internet went crazy over this after the three Spider-Man dressed in their Spider-Man attire are in that meme position, pointing and looking at each other, recreating that iconic Spider-Man meme. So that's always fun to see.
That was great. Because we got a little bit of that in the movie, James. We got a little bit of the scene when they were all working together, and they're like, "Which Peter? That Peter? We're all Peter, bro." Which was hilarious. But yeah, seeing that, them all in their full uniforms, like pointing at each other, it was like, it just feels so good. It's something we've been wanting for a couple of years. So yeah, it's just great to see more and more of that behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, and you really do see that brotherhood amongst the Spider-Men. And so that's a very exclusive club that those three guys are very lucky to be a part of. And it's so great to see not only Andrew Garfield, because we've been seeing him a lot talking about, after the movie came out, about how much it meant to be back in the Spidey suit, but also seeing Tobey Maguire back in the Spidey suit, and also seeing him having so much fun on set with Andrew and Tom. So again, Tobey is my original Spider-Man, and he will always be my Spider-Man, but you gotta love Andrew, gotta love Tom's portrayal of Peter Parker. But also keeping on to the Spider-Man news updates, this is actually really, I was pleasantly surprised and happy to see this announcement, but Bruce Campbell, he was in the original Spider-Mans 1, 2, and 3 with Tobey as a kind of like, a side character, a little witty, smart-alecky kind of character. And I guess the plot, or the idea, was to eventually have that character be revealed to be a Mysterio, to become Mysterio in the Sam Raimi-verse. But that never came to fruition because, of course, we never got a Spider-Man 4 with Sam. But we had this interview with Bruce Campbell showing that he does admit that he did film a cool scene with a character that's been beloved for years, and that we'll have to just end up and watch the movie to see what he does. But he is in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So
awesome.
My theory is that we are going to see a variant or an alternative version of Mysterio. Of course, we saw Jake Gyllenhaal's version of Mysterio, but it'd be great to see Bruce Campbell donning the globe helmet of that infamous character. But Bruce Campbell in anything is a win, so I'll take that.
Jake Gyllenhaal, if we could have both of them, that would be amazing too, if we could sneak Jake in there and have the two variants of Mysterio. But Mysterio may or may not still be alive.
Well, there was artwork that was released for No Way Home that shows in the final battle a Mysterio going up against Doctor Strange. And so it seems like it is very possible that he's still alive. Yeah. And again, Mysterio is a trickster. So again, we are led to believe that he died at the end of Far From Home. But it seems like, and very possible that he's still alive in the universe somewhere. So it'd be cool to see them kind of, appearing at the same time, kind of pointing at each other also. Everybody will be pointing at everybody's doppelganger. But that's the Spider-Man news. Now, let's get into this news, because I had the opportunity to sit down and talk to Michael Chiklis from The Shield, from American Horror Story. He is also in an episode of Seinfeld. So all those Seinfeld fans out there, of course, you remember Michael Chiklis' character. But he is playing none other than Celtics legendary coach Red Auerbach back in the heyday of the Celtics, when they were the most dominant team in the NBA. But then they come into contact with the rising dynasty of the LA Lakers. Well, again, I was able to sit down with Michael Chiklis, and let's just go right into the interview, because it's a cool one, and we'll let him give away all the details.
Yeah.
Michael Chiklis, you know him from his many TV and movie roles, including The Shield, Fantastic Four, American Horror Story, beginning on March 6th on HBO and HBO Max. You can catch him on the new series Winning Time, The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty. And you play none other than legendary Celtics coach Red Auerbach. Really quick, being from the Boston region, how do you go into that?
Well, listen, man, as you pointed out, I'm born, raised, and educated in the Boston area. I went to college in Boston University from 81 to 85, so I actually bore witness to this whole thing mushrooming and exploding into one of the greatest rivalries in sports history. And I grew up in a house where my father was a hardcore Celtics fan and preached the gospel of Red Auerbach. So the only sad thing about this whole experience is that my father isn't around to see me play this guy, because he would have loved this. Now, naturally, because it's winning time and it's from the perspective or the point of view of the Showtime Lakers, I'm naturally sort of cast in the role of the antagonist, if you will. But I'm happy to rep Boston in that way, and especially as the winningest coach in any sports history. I mean, listen, you don't win, no one wins 9 championships as a coach, 8 in a row. Without doing a lot of things right and a lot of things really well. And one of the great joys was finding out a lot of the inside details about the way he conducted himself and the way his players, his administrations, his fans loved, revered, and adored him. They just loved Red. And it's because he loved his players and he was deferential to them and he gave them a sense of belonging and agency. He made an atmosphere that created great teams. Now, on the one side, you have the great Red Auerbach, and representing, the establishment, the orthodoxy of basketball, if you will, East Coast discipline, hardcore work ethic. And here comes Jerry Buss, the antithesis of Red Auerbach. Doesn't come from the game, doesn't come from the tradition. An interloper, a guy who wears leisure suits with the buttons open to the navel, keys to the Playboy Mansion, hey there, hi there, ho there. They just represent completely different sides of the spectrum in terms of their philosophies. And I think that Red probably misjudged him or initially and sort of dismissed him, thinking, this guy's got a lot of money and he thinks he can throw money at this and just win it. I think he didn't realize what a formidable competitor Buss ended up being. And you got to tip your hat to Buss because he was a genius in terms of sports marketing. And I think he saw an opportunity as an outsider, as a person who was a real fan of the sport. Hey, this is fun. Let's bring the entertainment into this. And I think that has permeated not just the NBA, but all of sports across the board. I think the rise of the Lakers-Celtics rivalry and what happened subsequently has permeated into the way all sports franchises have have marketed sports. He understood the old school allure of the arena.
Now, I'm originally from Los Angeles, and so I grew up a Lakers fan. When I moved over here to Boston, I think it was kind of overwhelming, just the amount of support and passion that really does exist, not only for the Celtics, but for the Red Sox and for every other team in Boston. Filling this role, do you feel the pressure to get it quote unquote right, or are you afraid that you may, because over here the people, they'll razzle you, they're not afraid to
let you know. Listen, man, I want to be able to come home, of course I do.
Yes,
and fortunately I've had the great pleasure and responsibility and joy of playing a number of other iconic figures. John Belushi, the late great Curly Howard from the Three Stooges, and others. So this is a familiar pressure, and I understand it. And here's the thing: I research these things. I throw myself at it, and I approach it with reverence and respect and deference. So, in looking into Red, plus I'm servicing a role. There is what is in the script, right? And that's not my purview. So in the boundaries that I have, which are the bounds of the script, I do what I can to bring everything that I can to the role with respect and deference. And yeah, it does weigh heavily on you, but at the same time, if you let it weigh too heavily, then you wouldn't be able to function. So you got to enjoy it. And that's what I try to bring to it too, is the level of joy.
And you have an amazing cast with you: John C. Reilly, Sally Field, Adrian Brody, Jason Segel. What was it like working with them? Because I think, John C. Reilly is one of my personal comedic comedians out there. Yeah.
Well, most of my work primarily has been with John, and he's one of the reasons I signed on to do it. Because when Adam McKay comes to you, first of all, he's an incredible filmmaker.
Right.
Someone I really respect and admire, I've wanted to work with. But John C. Reilly is an all-time favorite, comedically and dramatically. I think he's kind of an unsung hero in terms of his career and his work. So I really wanted to work with him. And the idea of playing these two sort of alphas facing off with each other was thrilling to me and did not disappoint at all. We had a blast together and really related on a number of levels to each other as well. And I also really loved working with Jason Clarke, the Australian actor who plays Jerry West. Just incredibly talented, really, really smart, deferential to his character as well. And, I guess it's, listen, it's HBO. It's, again, McKay and Reilly and just this great team bringing to audiences an incredible story that really only could have happened in 1979 into the 80s, because it was a different time. It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll meets sports. I mean, in a way that had never happened, and it would just brought this glamour and sex appeal and glitz to the whole industry, and it really shook the whole thing up. And there were consequences for that, and a lot of lessons learned. That it definitely changed the game and all games from that point on.
Well, Michael, I'm very excited to watch Winning Time on HBO and HBO Max. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, James. A pleasure. Go Boston.
Go Boston. So, Michael Chiklis, thank you very much for being on the Hub on Hollywood. We'd love to talk to him again. He's a Boston guy. He's a Boston boy. Raised in Lowell, went to BU, Boston University. So it's always great to see somebody from our region.
Go us. And we can't wait to have him back. That's great.
So let's go into now. I know we're trying to do our Oscar runs. We're trying to watch the movies that are nominated for Best Picture and some of the actors out there. And we got the screener for CODA the groundbreaking ensemble of CODA, which is, it stands for Child of Deaf Parents or Deaf Adults. And so this is a great movie that I was just happened to watch recently. It is nominated for Best Picture, and it is also it also includes Best Supporting Actor Troy Kotsur. He is the first deaf man to be nominated for an acting Oscar, an acting role, and also this movie is also nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. But CODA, it is an original Apple film. It's the story of a child of a deaf adult, Ruby. She's the only hearing person in her deaf family. But when the family's fishing business, based in Gloucester, is threatened, Ruby finds herself torn between pursuing her love of music, but wanting to go to Berklee College of Music, and her fear of abandoning her parents. And this is CODA is a very heartwarming, emotional, and a very touching story about this family living here in Massachusetts, struggling to get by. And it follows the 17-year-old Ruby, who is played by Amelia Jones. And Amelia Jones, she does a great job in this leading role. I actually don't know if she knew sign language before, but the rest of her co-stars are deaf, so of course they know American sign language. So I actually I'm not quite sure if she learned this from the role or for the role, or she had known this before. But you could have fooled me if she had never done this before, because she fits in so well with this family and with the rest of the cast who are actually deaf. And just seeing how they interact with each other, not only as a family unit, and them interacting with each other with the dramas and the highs and lows of life, but also them interacting with the rest of the public. And she's acting as the main translator, and she's been acting as the main translator since a very young age. And so there's a lot of weight and pressure that she feels, because again, she's very gifted. She's a very gifted singer. Her family doesn't know it, obviously, and her mom at certain points, kind of questions whether she's good enough to be pursuing this collegiate path, and leaving her family and the fishing business behind. But again, without giving away spoilers, this is a very touching movie. The cast is great, including both Marlee Matlin, who plays her mom, and Troy Kotsur. Again, you can just feel their passion through their emotions and through the gestures. But CODA, again, nominated for an Oscar. I recommend watching this. I believe I saw an article showing that it's actually being released in theaters, and depending which theater you may go to, you may get to see it for free. So if you happen to see it for free, if you don't have Apple, the Apple subscription, I highly recommend this movie.
That's great. And you know what I really appreciate about this, James, is that they brought in actors who are actually deaf. Yes. You know what I mean? So it's not like there's been so much conversation about representation, especially when the story revolves around someone with a disability, like actors with autism and things like that. So it's great to see the effort being put in to the authenticity of the film, in the representation of that community. A quick question for you. I know you highly recommend it. What would you say were the most compelling parts that really pulled at your heart here?
Well, really just the dynamic of the family. You can tell or feel that they're a very close family, though they do have their struggles. And even though the daughter does know American Sign Language, she does feel like a bit of a loner, because her older brother, mom and dad, they're all deaf, and they fall into this community where they feel comfortable with other deaf members of the community, while Ruby, she's trying to balance this world of being the translator for the family and trying to move forward and grow herself. Now, several times during this movie, she says that she's had to defend her family because, other people will make fun of her or her family because of the way, the way deaf people speak. They can have this accent, or what you may call an accent of some sort. And she, as a child of deaf parents, grew up with that kind of speech impediment, and then she eventually learned to speak properly. But growing up, that's a struggle that she's faced with, and she feels like she's faced that a lot by herself. And so it's and so you do feel, I think, the most emotional tugging when you see the family. They want her to stay and help them and be with them, but at the same time they realize that, you know what, she is very talented and she needs to be allowed to grow and express herself how she likes to be or wants to express herself. So seeing that realization of the family, of that initial struggle, and then eventually into that acceptance of like, you know what, this is what she wants and this is what's best for her, and we must do what we must do, with their business. And so this is, some people thought this may be like a very, a very heavy movie. I wouldn't say it's very heavy. There are heavy parts, but for the most part, I was actually laughing a lot throughout this movie. It's very fun to see the interactions and the way, they are the deaf community. They are in their own little sub-community and how they interact with the rest of the world. So you see that, and you see the humor that they also, they bring out of it also. So
that's great. Well, it sounds like it could be very relatable. And one of the best parts, it was shot here. It was shot in New England, shot in Massachusetts. We actually brought some of the casting calls. We shared that with you, our listeners of the Hub on Hollywood, casting calls for CODA when they were filming it here in New England. And we have more of those. We have more casting calls to bring to you for opportunities for films like this. Not to mention two that are up for Oscars right now, including CODA, like you mentioned, and the other one being Don't Look Up. And we're just awesome like that. We just want to let you know how to become an Oscar-winning actor. That's all. So we've got a couple of castings right now. James, why don't you kick it off if you want?
So we have CP casting. They're looking for men 25 to 55 years old of any ethnicity. In particular, they're looking for Portuguese, Cape Verdean, to portray hardworking commercial fishermen. You do need some experience in scalloping and dredging. That is a plus if you do know how to scallop and dredge. But this is said to be a well-paid work in a feature film called Finest Kind that's shooting in New Bedford and in Gloucester. Between mid-April and in mid-June. Finest Kind is said to be a crime drama set up against the rough-and-tumble, hard-action world of commercial fishing out of New Bedford, Massachusetts. So if any of that appeals to you, if any of those descriptions, if you meet them, email your number, recent photos of yourself, acting experience, fishing experience. Email that to finestkindcasting@gmail.com. Finestkindcasting@gmail.com.
Awesome. Boston Casting is looking for male choir singers between the ages of 16 and 19 for a feature film that is shooting in March. This is a paid opportunity, so you're going to want to send your name, contact information, which is your cell, your email, current photo, and your choir experience to Boston Casting, Boston Casting Submit 5@gmail.com. Boston Casting also putting together working on a number of projects right now, including The Holdovers with Paul Giamatti, which is filming in and around the Boston area. Also, the second season of Kevin Can F Himself is happening right now, and they are also doing volumetric digital capturing of people to digitally insert you into the Whitney Houston biopic that's filming right now. So that's all through Boston Casting. If you're interested in all of those really cool opportunities, you are going to want to sign up with bostoncasting.com.
All right. Well, those are all the casting calls we have for this week. Again, if you meet any of those descriptions, if you are interested, definitely email. And they're looking for folks. They're looking for locals to hire. And if you know anyone who matches those descriptions, your dad, your mom, your cousin, your neighbor, let them know. Send them a link to this episode, and so they can check it out. And again, maybe one day they'll be appearing in an Oscar-nominated film, filmed right here in Massachusetts. But one thing that was not filmed in Massachusetts, actually way far away from Massachusetts, all the way across the country, Raising Arizona. What we're watching, I recently watched this movie for the first time. I've always heard about it, starring Nicolas Cage and Holly Hunter, written and directed by the Coen brothers. I just never got around to it until recently when my fiance and I sat down and watched it. And it's a real fun ride. So basically, if you're not aware, with Raising Arizona, made in 1987, when a childless couple of an ex-con and an ex-cop, they decide to... Let me retract really quick. There's this couple, including an ex-con and an ex-police officer, an jail guard. They fall in love with each other, and they decide that they want to start a new life and they want to have kids. Unfortunately, they find out that the wife cannot have kids. So when they hear about quintuplets being born not too far away in Arizona, and they decide, hey, this family, they have quintuplets. They have more than enough kids. They won't mind one disappearing. And so they take it upon themselves to kidnap one of the quintuplets. And their lives, of course, become complicated, much more complicated than they anticipated. But this is like prime Nicolas Cage. Back in 1987, Nicolas Cage could be a hit or miss for some people, especially considering which role he is in at the moment. But this role is pure Nicolas Cage energy. And so if you're missing some of that primetime Cage, this is it. I was laughing throughout this movie. Again, if you think about it at face value, this couple stealing a baby from this other married couple, it sounds like a horror movie. But the way the world that this is set in, this is kind of like an absurd world, and so you can really look past that part, and just you really do enjoy the characters because they're I don't want to say they're dumb, but they're pretty airheaded in the way that they approach things and the way they approach life. But almost every character in this movie is the same way, so it kind of evens out. But Raising Arizona. Come on, Desi.
We're losing
Desi, you will enjoy
She's
Raising Arizona.
No, don't kidnap babies.
No kidnapping babies. Don't worry, Desi. You will not. You're fine.
Yeah,
you're fine.
You're fine. It's a funny movie. It's a funny movie.
Yeah.
It's definitely an absurd plot. It's not where I would have thought that was going. It's like,
no,
you're not going to miss
I had no
one
idea.
of them. Like, yes, you are. But yeah, if primetime Nicolas Cage, like National Treasure Nicolas Cage type deal, like that sounds good to me. It sounds good to me. And just what we've been watching in my house, James, besides Encanto every single day,
of course,
because children. I did manage to get some time to myself and watch a little bit of Hulu. Check in. I haven't checked in on Hulu in a while. They have amazing new stuff and just amazing content in general. So Mel Brooks. Some Mel Brooks movies are now up on there. We were watching Robin Hood Men in Tights, introducing my son to Robin Hood Men in Tights. My husband, who had never seen it, we've talked about this a few times. My poor husband was only allowed to watch Jaws growing up, and never really got access to all of the incredible films and television of the 90s and 2000s. So he's never seen Robin Hood Men in Tights.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and just remembering that, what's the name of the comedian who's in it?
Carrie Lewis.
Carrie Lewis is in it, of Princess Bride fame.
Oh, yeah, Robin Wright.
So
Robin Wright. No, wait, no. I'm thinking, no, she's not in that. She's in Princess Bride.
Right. But the comedian, stand by. We can cut this
Dave Chappelle.
Yes, Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
Yes, Dave Chappelle is in it, and he's amazing. He's really funny as a Chew. So we were just having a blast watching Robin Hood Men in Tights. There's also Airplane on there. What's that?
Yeah, Airplane's great. Has your husband seen Airplane? And has he seen? Okay, that's good. Has he seen Three Amigos?
No, he's not seen
with
Three
Steve
Amigos.
Martin, Martin Short, and Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
Watch Three Amigos. That's a classic. That's one of my favorite comedies of all time.
Yeah. So we got to get him up to speed on a lot of things. I've been trying,
Come on, Ron.
James. I've got a lifetime to do it. So we'll get him there. We'll get him there. And Deadpool, and I didn't realize that Deadpool was on Hulu. So I've been watching that. My mother came over, then I had to stop watching that because it's not the kind of movie that you watch with your mother. But just wonderful stuff for the few minutes that I get to myself I've been checking in on Hulu. So what have you guys been watching? What should we watch? What should we review? What did you think of our Chiklis interview? What did you think of CODA? All of that. Let us know. You know where to find us. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram.
We're on the TikTok now.
On the TikToks. We're everywhere that you want to be. At Hub on Hollywood. Find us. Join in on the conversation. Have fun. And yeah, James, until next time, I think that's it for us.
That's a wrap. I'm James.
I'm Jamie. See ya.
Bye.
Say bye.